Okay, so in this recording, we'll be taking up all the craniometric measurements. So, in a lab-based setting, what we require generally is a dry skull, beanbag, and the required instruments. For example, if we are measuring the arch or say the circumference measurements, then in that case, we'll be using a tape or a spreading calipers. And for example, if you're using the frontal chords or say the linear measurements, in that case we'll be taking up sliding calipers. So instruments again varies depending on the measurement that we're taking up, right? Also, now when we're using the skull, which is not a living specimen, so in that case we use the sharp ends of any instrument that we're using. Whereas when we'll be studying in somatometry, when we are taking the measurements on a living specimen or a living person for that matter, the sharp ends of that instrument is used. So and now we'll be starting up. Firstly, I'll be taking up all the measurements, although few of them will be in repetition of the classes that we have taken. Few of the measurements we have already done, so I'll take up all of them in this presentation. Now, firstly is the maximum cranial length. So the maximum cranial length is identified as a linear measurement between glabella and opistocranium. So these two are the landmarks. Now, remember, in every measurement that we are mentioning or defining, because it's associated with the skull, and until unless the base landmark at the base is used, you have to mention that every measurement is taken only when the head or say the skull was oriented in mid-sagittal plane, in a Frankfurt horizontal plane, in the eye-ear plane, right? So the orientation was properly done, and after that, using the appropriate instrument, the measurement from the given landmarks specific to the measurement that we are defining. Okay, so in that context you have to mention the landmarks, and then from that measurement, from those landmarks we've taken the measurement. So mentioning the orientation is very important. That is what I wanted to specify here. Apart from that, if I ask you define the landmarks, if in the question it's specified define the landmarks, then go defining the landmarks also. But if it's only the definition, say 1 mark, then you write the definition, you say which instrument is used, and in case it requires, for example, opistocranium. Now see, opistocranium somewhere lies at the occiput region of your head, in this region. Okay, so in this region, basically the most posterior point is how you identify opistocranium. Okay, now how you take the measurement, how you identify the landmark, by sliding the one end of your spreading calipers up and down in the occiput region, and sometimes it goes beyond to the temporal region, but most generally it is in the occiput region. So now you have to slide your calipers up and down to get the maximum reading on the scale of the spreading calipers, right? So that is how the landmark is identified. So this method of identifying opistocranium, even if I'm not asking define the landmark opistocranium, but this becomes a part of how you identify or how you take the measurement. So if I ask you only define the measurement, say define maximum cranial length, what you are going to write is this is a linear measurement from glabella to opistocranium when the head is oriented, when the skull is oriented in a mid-sagittal plane, and glabella being the midpoint at the mid-sagittal plane, and opistocranium lying at the most posterior point, located by sliding the calipers up and down to get the maximum projected point. Fine. So here you're not defining opistocranium, but in a way you are saying that how you take the measurement. Right? So defining the measurement includes to some extent the method involved, right? Not in detail, but general idea of it. Also, the instrument used, like after defining one liner, you will say instrument used, spreading calipers. Fine. So that is how you are expected to write in your exams. Now, when I start with maximum cranial length, See, there are two landmarks here involved, glabella and opistocranium. Now, glabella is identified as the point here, and see, we've already discussed the point here in the midpoint of your frontal bone between the supraorbital ridges. These are the supraorbital. Here, a sort of a skull, also the skin, the face of the person is used, and outline is given for the skull. This is not, in osteology and craniometry, we generally use only the skull, not the face. So the face wise becomes somatometric readings. But when we're saying, for example, in reference to skull, we will say it being the supraorbital ridges, like here the orbit, the socket of the eye. In skull we say it orbit. In humans, the living person, we say it eye. Above that we have eyebrows, but in the skull we do not have eyebrows, so in that reference we use the term supraorbital ridges. So between the two supraorbital ridges there's a point which is slightly above the nasion as in lying at the junction of the frontal and the nasal the frontonasal suture. So that point is called nasion. Slightly above that, which lies here between, here is the forehead, this portion, let's say here is the frontal bone, the mid-sagittal plane. Yeah, so this is the mid-sagittal plane here. Now this entirely is the frontal bone. So the most proximal end of your frontal bone between the two supraorbital ridges lying on the mid-sagittal plane when the head is oriented in Frankfurt horizontal plane. Fine. When the head is oriented in eye-ear plane, or the skull is oriented in eye-ear plane, that point is identified as glabella. Fine. The definition to it is the point above the nasal root at the bottom part of a forehead, foremost on the median plane between the eyebrows. Right, because these are anthropometric. In anthropometric here in general it is talking, because it is including both somatometry as well as craniometry. So when we are specifically talking about craniometry, you have to write between the two supraorbital ridges. Fine. Now coming on to opistocranium. Opistocranium is identified. See, this document is, I think, some university where, I think, German or Russian. Because of that they have used K, but generally in Indian reference we use C, opistocranium. Okay, now it's a point situated in the occipital part of the head. This is the key word, the occiput area of the head, on the medial plane, most distant from the glabella. Now here you will see this being the glabella, this point, this projection is here, the most posterior point is identified as a glabella, and here you will see the most posterior point, the farthest point from glabella is the opistocranium. Fine. Now how you will do it, you will put one end of your slide spreading calipers, the one end, blunt end or the sharp end of the sliding calipers at this point, and you will slide it up and down. On the sliding calipers you will see the reading, wherever it is coming the maximum is the opistocranium landmark. Okay, so that is how you are going to locate opistocranium, and this therefore becomes the maximum length of the entire skull. Fine. Height wise we'll be seeing this ways. This is the length, and breadth will be seen from the frontal view from these 2 points. These 2 points will become the breadth. From urion to urion becomes the maximum cranial breadth. Fine. We'll take it one by one, don't worry. Okay. So this is about cranial length. Next, coming on to maximum cranial breadth from 2 urions, as I mentioned, from the frontal view, on the parietal wings of your skull, parietal wings as in जो most posterior point of your parietal bone, which is very clearly visible as the border of your skull from the frontal view. Okay, so these wings, parietal wings, the most posterior point here lying, again identified by sliding the calipers up and down, you will get the maximum reading. These 2 points are the urions, plural uria. EURYA is urea, the plural form of urions. So from EU to EU is identified as maximum cranial breadth. Next coming on is the bizygomatic breadth. Bizygomatic breadth or the diameter is the linear measurement from zygote to zygote. Now also not to mention maximum cranial breadth is taken using spreading calipers. Fine. Now coming on to bizygomatic breadth. See, firstly, what is zygote? Let me show you. Now when we were doing the landmarks of the skull, you remember the zygomatic arch. Now zygomatic arch, or again depending on the facial form, the most posterior point coming from your lateral sides of your skull, okay, but again we'll take from the frontal view, not from the lateral sides. From the frontal view we'll locate the two ends of the spreading caliper, one end being located here and the other being here, and you will take the measurement on the spreading calipers. You will see where is the maximum point. Now here you are not going to slide it up or down, you are going to slide it backwards and forwards, okay. From that you will get the maximum reading, and that is how you are going to take the measurement on the spreading calipers. Fine. The most posterior point on the zygomatic arch or the zygomatic bone. Now these two are again different. If you have no clarity regarding that, then again refer back to the osteological documents that I've shared. The zygote is identified as the most lateral point on the zygomatic arch, determined when measuring the maximal width of the face. Now again, for every facial form we have different location of this most posterior point. So it could be on the zygomatic arch, it could be on the zygomatic bone also, but do not come here on the towards the maxillary part. Only on the zygomatic arch you have to see which is the most posterior point, and the most posterior point you will determine by sliding the calipers. Fine. So this is maximum bizygomatic breadth. Now you have the maximum cranial height. Let's take this. Yeah, maximum cranial height from basion to bregma. Now bregma is identified as the point when we're talking the coronal suture in the skull, when we have seen the coronal suture in the mid-sagittal plane, the coronal and the junction of coronal suture and the mid-sagittal suture, I think from the sort of this point. Now the coronal suture is the entire junction of the frontal and the parietal bone, also on the mid-sagittal plane, but the bregma point is here precisely at the junction of coronal and the mid-sagittal, so at this point. Now again, because we are measuring the height, so height has to be this way. Fine. So you can make an analysis that bregma is going to be here. So for height, the other point with what we are going to refer is going to be at the base of the skull, right? So basion. Now basion becomes, as the name itself says, basion is lying at the base of the skull near to the foramen magnum. Let me show you the definition for it. Basion, I guess, is not there in this one. So basically basion is identified as the, we have the foramen magnum in the base of the skull. Now one end, the most anterior end, okay, becomes the basion point, okay, on the one of the margin of the foramen magnum is identified as basion. Let me show you the precise definition for it. See this point here at the bottom, at the base of the skull. Now this is identified as the foramen magnum. Now towards the dental arch, the point lying towards the frontal side of the skull, okay, that point, the anterior point, is identified as basion, not towards the back side but towards the front side, okay. So when you hold the skull, upside down, the basion, the point, the margin of the foramen magnum, which is directed towards the dental arch or towards the front side of your skull, towards the maxillary side of your skull, is identified as basion. Fine. whereas the other side of the foramen magnum, the point here located by O is the point opistheon. So now you can identify the two most literal point on the margins of foramen magnum. One point which is directed towards the dental arch, which is identified as basion, gives you the cranial height, and the other, on the contrary, the counterpart landmark at the margin of foramen magnum is the opistheon. Okay, and so here what we require is basion. Now when we say here, so this point here at the foramen magnum directed towards the dental arch is called as basion. Fine, this is basion. Basion. The short form is B, I guess, if I'm not wrong. Let me check. Okay, it's BA. For bregma, it is B. So basion is BA. Fine. Okay. Now the next measurement. Now, okay, so this is pretty obvious now. Now how you're going to calculate the height? So you'll put one of the spreading calipers. Now how you're going to spread it is from the back side of the skull, not from the front side, because again it's going to interrupt with respect to the maxilla we have in front. The spreading calipers is not going to be comfortably opened. And probably it could, because of mandible, if mandible is located, also because of maxilla, it won't be, locating properly. So what you do, you take the measurement from the back side, open the spreading calipers at the maximum, then slightly, now you're not going to get the maximum point, right? So the junction is clearly depicted on the basis of its location, like coronal suture and the sagittal plane intersects at one given point. So that one given point is clearly marked because it's a suture line, right? So it's clearly identified. You do not have to slide up and down or back and forth. Fine, so this is clearly located. This becomes bregma. Now from here you will locate the interior side. At the base you will locate, let's say hypothetically, this is becoming the foramen magnum, and this is the point directed towards the dental arch. So from here to here, because when you open the spreading calipers, one of the point is going to settle down here and the other point going to settle down at the upside. So this gives you the cranial height. Fine. Now also, why we are saying cranial, because it's only with respect to the cranium. Now go back to the basic definitions where we have covered the difference between skull, cranium, clavaria and all, calotti, all these key terminologies. So now here we are saying maximum cranial height because it's only about the brain box that we're talking about, only the cranium, not the maxilla, not the mandible. So only the brain box, therefore the maximum height is, these two junctions. Now at the back we do not have a clear a key landmark which could give, this could be the maximum point and the maximum height could be located from here, but the base we do not have the maximum point. So this is very calculated decision that we take from bregma to basion to calculate the maximum height. Fine. So now also go by the name of the definitions, name of the measurements that we're taking up. Fine. So this is the cranial height from bregma to basion. Next coming on to is the, let's say, nasion to prostheon height. Okay, let's take nasion to enion length. Length of the nasion to enion. Okay, now nasion is identified as the point on the nasal bridge at the junction of the frontal and the nasal bone, right? In the frontonasal suture on the superior edge of the nasal bones. This point therefore does not always lie at the most depressed point of the nasal root. So when we see from here, this point below the glabella, but again it lies at the midpoint of the supraorbital ridges, again on the mid-sagittal plane of your or the most median plane of your entire skull. This plane at the junction of frontal bone with the nasal bone. At the frontonasal suture, the midpoint between the two eyes, at the mid-sagittal plane below, at the nasal root. Now when we'll study the somatometry, in fact in somatoscopy you would have known about the nasal root. So the depressed point on the nose from where the bridge of the nose starts is identified as nasal root. So generally nasion is identified at that depression, but sometimes it also varies depending on the form of the nose. So this point is different in some cases, but it's essentially the point at the depression of the nasal root. So taking up the definition of nasion, this is nasion at the most depressed point of the nasal root. Now the second landmark is enion. Now when we're seeing basion, where's basion? Let me show you. Yeah, this one. Now here, if you will see at the back of the skull, there were superior and inferior nuchal lines. If you remember the occiput area of the skull, in that the line which is coming at the base and the most posterior point of the occiput of the head, this one. So here when we are talking about the superior nuchal lines, now at the posterior view, let me show you. So we have the nuchal lines. These are the nuchal lines. Fine. Now this point, the superior nuchal line, this point is identified as enion. Okay, I, labeled by I. So when we take the measurement from nasion to enion, again we use the spreading calipers. We place one point on the nasion, the other point on the enion. Getting the point where enion is located at the most posterior point of the occiput, going towards the base of the skull. Okay, so again it's a linear measurement. Now enion is again a point which is lying on the mid-sagittal plane. So all these points, this is again, even the basion, the opistheon, the entire foramen magnum ka margins is lying on the mid-sagittal plane. So that is why they are becoming also the important landmarks, because every measurement is being taken from either the lateral sides, the most projected point, or the points which are lying on the mid-sagittal plane to get an appropriate orientation. Fine. So this point is identified as enion. Let me see if I get the definition. The definition I think would be the most projected point on the occiput itself, not going towards the base, but on the occiput, the area of the occiput going towards the base. So that most posterior and the most projecting point is identified as enion. Fine. Now next, coming on to maximum cranial breadth we've taken, then nasion to prostheon height. Now nasion, we are now able to locate it precisely, this portion, the depression of the nasal root or the mid-sagittal plane between the two supraorbital ridges below the glabella point. All these things are the keywords to locate nasion. Okay, also when the head is when the skull is oriented in eye-ear plane. So the new landmark that we have is prostheon. So prostheon is identified as the most posterior point on the maxillary area. Now between the two incisors, you will see this point here. This point is identified as prostheon, PR. PRO STHION is prosteon. So this point between the two incisors lying on the mid-sagittal plane, again most importantly, also as the most posterior point on the alveolar process of your maxilla. Okay, so this is identified as prosteon. Now from nasion to prosteon is the one of the facial length that you take. Okay, gives you the one of the measurement for your facial length. Okay, now again when we take the somatometric readings, there are going to be either the physiognomic facial length or the morphological facial length, the relative facial height. All these things are different. So in your syllabus, it's only the nasion to the prosteon length that we are measuring. Okay, also called as the upper facial height, if I'm not wrong. It's the upper facial height that we are taking up here. Okay, so now the two landmarks are precisely clear, where the prosteon is and where the nasion is, right? So now next coming on to is the bizygomatic breadth. Bizygomatic we have already discussed. Then the minimum frontal breadth. Yeah, the minimum frontal breadth from the 2 points which are frontotemporale to frontotemporale. Let me see if there's a definition to this here. With respect to the frontotemporale, this point, this landmark is on the lateral side of the skull. So here we do not have, or it's not important to mention that head must be oriented in mid-sagittal plane, because the landmark is not on the mid-sagittal plane, it's on the lateral side. So now, as the name itself says, we are taking the minimum frontal breadth. So frontal again specifies we are taking on the frontal bone, the frontal part, specifically on the frontal bone. Now we have these temporal lines on the frontal bone, these ones. These are the front temporal lines and the most anterior point. Now you can see, because it's the minimum point we're taking, so the anterior most point, at the front, this deepest point where you get the minimum reading is identified as the frontotemporale area. Now again we are taking using the spreading calipers, so we'll locate it and we'll get the minimum reading. That point is identified as frontotemporale. Again, it varies with respect to the head form or the facial form, because the bones, the maximum or the minimum point again varies according to it. So frontotemporale is located along the temporal lines on the frontal bone at the most anterior point of these lines. Fine. So this gives you the minimum frontal breadth, this one. Fine. Yeah, so I was correct. See, prosteon to nasion is identified as the upper facial height. So this is it. Now, as I was saying, there are differences like with respect to relative height, morphological height, physiognomic height, total facial height, upper facial, there are different readings to that. So the upper facial height is identified as nasion to prosteon, right? So we have covered minimum frontal breadth also.